And so we start the last one of the first 6-pack. We've reached the halfway point in this flipped classroom series. I hope that by now you have come to realize that there are various structural patterns in compositions. The way we write can change depending on who is reading our composition and what we want to tell that person or those people. However, there are some parts of a composition that don't change. There should always be an introduction, a middle section with examples or details or even a story, and finally a conclusion. In this chapter, we're going to look at describing things that are a little unusual. The basic pattern is similar to the previous chapter when we looked at introducing some apps for smartphones. But this time, I want you to concentrate on telling a story. Telling stories is often what communication is based around, whether you are writing or speaking. You can tell stories about your experiences as a child, something that happened during the day, or a funny experience you had. Let's get into it. This is basically what we are going to cover in this video and in our class. As I always do, I'd like to share 1 or 2 videos with you to start. Although we'll do the DICTOGLOSS in class, of course, I would like to give you a tip to help you improve your skills in the DICTOGLOSS activity. Next, I'll give you an overview of the structure for this week, and then we'll look at this structure with the text. I'll remind you again about the homework for this week before briefly discussing the writing topic for this chapter. Have you ever heard of Monty Python? They were an immensely popular British comedy group in the late 1960s and early to mid 1970s. They had a real slapstick kind of comedy. This style of comedy is one that you either love or hate. I really like them, and I think their silly humor is great. Today, I'd like to introduce you a couple of my favorite skits. I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. The first one, which is related to today's topic, is the Silly Olympics. First, let's go to YouTube and search Monty Python Silly Olympics. You'll find a few videos just over 3 minutes in length, most of which will have a thumb tag that looks like this. Choose any of those to watch the video. Once you have watched that and you've had a taste for Monty Python, you could also have a look at these two. Monty Python Ministry of Funny Walks and Monty Python Argument Clinic. Have a look, and if you are not sure what is going on, we can discuss it in class. Okay, let's go back to the serious stuff. As always, we will do our DICTOGLOSS again next class. If you are not seeing much progress in your skills, try doing some reading of our textbook. You can do some practice with a friend. One person reads the text, and the other person listens and repeats. The important thing to remember is to be strict on the grammar while you are doing this practice exercise. Unless the person repeating repeats the sentence of chunk perfectly, keep doing it over and over again until he or she does. This will help both you and your partner improve the grammatical accuracy of your English. Here's the basic structure we will see in today's text. After a brief introduction, we'll see descriptions of 3 unusual Olympic sports: curling, trampoline, and skeleton. The basic structure of these paragraphs will start with a short introduction explaining what the sport is. Then, and this is important, there will be a description of the rules or the object of the sport. Finally, we'll see some stories about people's experience with the sport. When you write, you can add stories based on your own experience or someone else's experience. Now let's look at this structure in the text. Well, we start with an introduction. This introduction is pretty good. If I'm going to be critical of it though, I'm going to say it is a little short. I often like to work on an introduction that is about 15% of the overall length of the passage. This introduction has 31 words, and there are 356 words in the entire passage, meaning it is just under 9% of the total passage. Still, as you can see here, the writer has given some background information about the Olympics. If I were giving advice to the writer, I would suggest adding just one more sentence in the background part of this introduction. The final sentence in the introduction, as you would remember from last week's explanation, is commonly called the thesis statement. Here is very clear though. Whoever reads this will be able to just look at this one sentence and know exactly what the composition is about. Well done to this writer. The first sport is curling. I don't think curling is that strange, but as far as Olympic sports go, I guess it is on the unusual side. We start by answering the question of what it is, with a short, sharp sentence. Curling is a sport that is played on ice. The writer then moves on by giving us some details about the sport, in particular the rules and, very importantly, the object or goal. How do we decide who the winner is? The remainder of the description tells a story about one person's experience. Because the theme of this entire composition is Olympic sports, the author writes about the experience of Olympic athletes. When you write, you can add your own experience, or perhaps the experience of friends, family, or colleagues. Next, we go to the sport trampoline. Again, I don't think this is an especially unusual sport, although I will admit I was surprised that it was elected to become an Olympic sport. Just like the previous section, the structure is very clear here. We find at the beginning exactly what trampolining is. There is a brief explanation of the rules and even some details related to how athletes can get a better score. And finally, a comment about Olympic athlete Jennifer Perilla's experience. I hope I got the pronunciation of your name right there, Jennifer, if you're watching. The final sport is skeleton. I remember doing something like this on my skateboard when I was younger. No helmets for us though. Now I shouldn't need to explain the structure here, as I am sure that you can see it for yourself. Again, it's pretty clear. We start with a simple explanation of what skeleton is, followed by how to do it and some interesting details about the origin of the name of the sport. To complete this section, we have some comments from skeleton racer Zach Gale. Before I go on to the next slide, I'm going to be critical of the passage here, and I hope you can guess what my criticism is going to be of. There is no caramel sauce. Still, we are missing a conclusion. Conclusions often give a short summary of the main ideas in the passage, or talk about predictions for the future of these sports. Here, the writer could have discussed one or two ideas about whether he or she feels these sports really should be Olympic sports or not. The writer could have discussed which of the sports he or she wants to try the most. Whatever the conclusion is about, you shouldn't leave your reader high and dry like this. In this week's writing, make sure you include a conclusion that is going to complete your passage smoothly. If you haven't done it already, here's the homework for this week. Be careful of the section Vocabulary Skill B, as there are a couple of items that have 2 or 3 words as the answer. Please have your homework submitted by the due date and time. And here is the moment you've all been waiting for. Your turn. This week, I'm going to ask you to think of some unusual Japanese foods or some other field. Choose 3 items in that field and write a description of those foods using the structure we have discussed in this video. Here are a couple of examples of food from Japan that may be seen by some as unusual. Yakisoba, crickets, raw horse-flavored ice cream, yummy. Sea urchin, and natto, that is, fermented soybeans. Remember to add an introduction and a conclusion to your passage, and you'll be as right as rain. Alright, that is it for this week. Make sure you do a little bit of reading practice every day, and I'll see you in class. Bye.